When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them.
But do you have a responsibility as an elected official not to raise the temperature, but rather lower the temperature?
We need to understand why they are so problematic. And so I am using that language because it is accurate language. When we see the consolidation of power, that is a playbook out of Hitler.
They continue to use the same failed strategy, and they wonder why it doesn't work. For decades, deacons at Woke United Methodist, they have been using the same playbook. You just saw it in that clip with Jazz Crockett, which was filmed yesterday morning. Communist, socialist, or as they're now called, woke. The labels always change. The strategy is always the same. They can't debate their ideas because they know you will reject them. Have you noticed that the Democrats don't have a platform? Have you noticed the Democrats don't have a plan? Have you ever wondered why? Their plan was universally rejected last November. So instead of debating their ideas, they attempt to discredit normal people by using labels. Fascist, racist, misogynist. On the morning of Charlie Kirk's funeral, Jazz Crockett is continuing to use the same rhetoric that's potentially responsible for the rise of political violence. Yesterday, when I was talking about normal Democrats, when I was talking about reasonable Democrats, I was not referring to Jazz Crockett. I was not referring to AOC LGBT or Rashid Tlaib, Omar Elon, who will hopefully be returning home very soon. And when I say home, I'm not talking about Omar returning to the Islamic Republic of Minnesota. Hopefully, she will be returning home to the third world dump known as Somalia. This group of activists that was somehow elected to Congress, this group of destructionists who have never built anything, you could combine the achievements of AOC, Jazz, Rashid, and Omar, and you will quickly see that the four of them combined have never even built a resume. But the main problem with this group of ladies, along with the lonely men who follow them, they have no respect. They have no respect for the country, they have no respect for their constituents, and they damn sure have no respect for you. Yesterday in Phoenix, or Glendale, Arizona, Turning Point USA organized a public funeral for Charlie Kirk. Now, I didn't watch all of it. I was going back and forth between the funeral and the NFL, which, by the way, if you enjoy an Uncle Casey tirade, I will be unleashing a tirade on the second channel later today. If you saw the score of the Saints game yesterday, then you already know why. But yesterday, over 100,000 people came together to celebrate the life and the legacy of Charlie Kirk. The demand was so high, they couldn't fit everyone in State Farm Stadium, which holds over 70,000 people. They had to use the hockey arena, which was also filled to capacity. Over 100,000 people. There wasn't a single fight. There wasn't an overwhelming sense of hatred. 100,000 people came together to honor a man who I believe has positively changed the country. Unfortunately, not everyone was in the mood yesterday to be respectful. Not everyone was in the mood to honor an American hero. As expected, deacons at Woke United Methodist showed up to the funeral, and as expected, the deacons made a complete ass of themselves. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Let's go and get to the sponsor for today's video, my good friends at Chapter. One thing most people don't realize until it's too late, dealing with Medicare can be an overwhelming experience. Countless plans, rules, penalties. Fortunately, though, There is help available, and that's where Chapter steps in. Chapter is an advocate for seniors to help you choose the right plan for your needs. Chapter is completely independent, which means they're only incentivized to find the right plan for you. Uncle Casey actually tested out their services. Mom turned 65 back in January. Now, both my parents, they already had insurance plans, but had Mom call Chapter anyway. Long story short, Chapter told my parents that they already had the best plan available. There was no need for them to change. That's the kind of honest service Chapter provides. Look at it like this. If you were wrongfully sued, you're not going to court without a lawyer, right? So why would you deal with the hassle, the confusion of Medicare without having an advisor in your corner? Even if you already have coverage, Chapter might be able to find you a better plan. You literally have nothing to lose. It's free. So call today, 510-279-3616. Have Chapter find the right plan for you. You know, I was so relieved last night once the funeral services for Charlie Kirk were over, and it wasn't because I was ready for the services to end. I thought the service was incredibly inspiring, but I was happy when it ended because everyone went home safely. Going into the funeral, I was worried that the deacons were going to find a way to turn this inspiring moment into a tragedy. Fortunately, that did not happen. There were a lot of great speakers yesterday. I thought one of the best was Dr. Frank Turek, who said, Charlie's not in heaven right now because he was a great husband and a great father. Charlie Kirk isn't in heaven because he sacrificed himself for his Savior. Charlie Kirk is in heaven because his Savior sacrificed himself for Charlie Kirk. Yesterday, there were over 100,000 people who paid their respects to a man that I believe has made a lasting positive impact on America. But as expected, and I shouldn't have to say that, I shouldn't have to say as expected because behavior like this should not be expected. But I've come to expect it because this is what the woke fungus does. It seeks and destroys. And even though they tried, they gave a valiant effort. There was no destroying the moment yesterday. Outside of the stadium, a group of people who look like they haven't been properly introduced to a shower gathered together to protest Charlie Kirk. Now, keep in mind, this was a funeral. Deacons at Woke United Methodist, they gathered together to protest a funeral. They were holding up signs that were barely legible. Apparently, donations and tithes have decreased at Woke United Methodist. There's no longer room in the budget for professionally designed protest posters. So they borrowed some markers, I guess, from Goodwill and made the signs themselves. The first clip I'm going to show you is the protest outside of Charlie Kirk's funeral yesterday. Second clip was a protest in New York City. Watch for yourself.
Fuck Charlie Kirk! Fuck Charlie Kirk! He was a racist! He was a racist! He was a racist! He was a racist! He was hateful! He was hateful! He was never like Martin Luther King! He was never like Martin Luther King!
How indoctrinated do you have to be? How indoctrinated do you have to be to repeat the words of Captain Doofus? I'm sure you noticed that the crowds were sparse at these protests. Hell, I don't even know if they qualify as a protest. This was more like a gathering of lonely men complaining about their ongoing virginity. This was not a protest outside of a Turning Point USA event. This was not a protest outside of a campaign event for the Trumper. This was a protest outside of a funeral. Just to put that in perspective, when Martin Luther King was memorialized, the KKK didn't protest his funeral. The KKK was vile. They were evil. But even they had enough respect to not protest at the man's funeral. There were a lot of speeches at the service yesterday. The funeral lasted for several hours. Most people aren't going to have the time to watch the whole thing, but if you're going to watch a speech, I highly encourage you to listen to Erica Kirk. During her speech yesterday, Erica Kirk forgave Tyler Robinson for taking the life of her husband. It was a powerful moment. The entire crowd gave her a standing ovation. But if you're a deacon at Woke United Methodist, do not mistake forgiveness for weakness. Just because Erica Kirk has forgiven, it doesn't mean she has forgotten. From my understanding, Charlie Kirk was a moderate compared to his wife. He was like the good cop, and she was the bad cop. During his speech yesterday, the Trumper made some remarks that offended some Democrats. I know, shocker. The Trumper was talking about the difference between he and Charlie Kirk. Maybe I can learn something from Charlie. Charlie loved his enemies, but me, I hate them. I hate my enemies. I do not want what's best for them. Me personally, I think we need both. You need the good cop and you need the bad cop. You need a Charlie Kirk and you need a Donald Trump. Over the last month or so, I have been rewatching Ozark again. The drug kingpin that Marty and Wendy Bird work for is named Omar Navarro. Not to be confused with Omar Elon, who some believe is married to her own brother. Omar Navarro is using the Birds to advance his cartel's interest. At one point, he's on the phone talking to Wendy Bird, and she's telling him about someone who is refusing to work with him. Basically, he's refusing to comply to their demands. Omar Navarro says, try to get what you want with reason, and if that doesn't work, get it with force. Charlie Kirk was the reason. Donald Trump is the force. The thing about deacons at Woke United Methodist, they seem to only respond to force. They take advantage of reason. They see it as weakness. The only way to defeat the woke fungus is with force. Give me your thoughts on this. What did you guys think of the funeral yesterday? Was this the beginning of a revival, a spiritual revival here in America? Is the woke fungus being destroyed? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.